Hello, welcome to the Free Your Children podcast. I am your host, Tiffany Boyd, and we are very pleased that you are joining us today. We are very excited about the growth that we're experiencing with Free Your Children. We have now surpassed 17,000 followers on Facebook. So if you aren't following us on Facebook, please make sure to click that button and make sure that you are so that you don't miss any of the information that we are trying to bring to you on a regular basis to help you and equip you to better protect your families. Also, if you are not following us on our other social media platforms, we hope that you will consider doing that as well. That's one way that you can help us and it doesn't cost you a dime. So make sure that you are visiting our freeyourchildren.com website. Sign up for our free newsletter. We are also on Substack. You can find us on Instagram, X, Rumble, YouTube, all your usual social media platforms. So make sure you're plugging into those. And again, you click like and follow. Also, we are still traveling around the nation presenting our seminars. So if you have an interest in hosting a seminar, please send us an email. You can find that contact information over on our website, and we would be happy to send you a seminar packet and come to your area. We customize our seminars so that we can better educate your friends and family and your groups on what they need to know and understand, once again, to better protect their families. So if you have any interest in that, please reach out, and we would love to be able to come to your neck of the woods, as we like to say in the South. Also, again, make sure you sign up for that free newsletter. I am also a monthly contributor to the Borough Pulse. So I link all of my articles over on our website, freeyourchildren.com. You can also find those articles over on the Borough Pulse. You will also find those over on Substack if you are following us there as well. Today's show is going to be focusing on charter schools and the Charter School Network. If you have followed me for any length of time, you know where we stand on charter schools. You know that we view them, just as Charlotte Iserbyt did, as another leg of the school choice movement. We also know that it leads to the globalization of education, and it is a very good example of taxation without representation. But there are also issues with charter schools that you may or may not be aware of. I sounded the alarm back in 2022 on a charter school that is open in the state of Tennessee that had ties to Fethullah Gulen. And so today's guests, I'm going to bring them on because they have experience with a charter school with the same allegations of ties to Fethullah Gulen. And so I'm going to bring them on, let them introduce themselves, and let them tell you from their own personal experiences what this has looked like in their area of North Carolina. So let me bring on those two guests. We have Bethany Wilson and her son Hilton joining us today. Welcome. Thank you for being willing to jump on here and share your story. Bethany, I want to start with you. Please introduce yourself. Tell our followers who you are, how you found Free Your Children, and why you're joining us today.
Hi, so my name is Bethany Wilson. I am Hilton's mother. He was a student at Triangle Math and Science Academy from 4th grade to 11th grade. He had a good experience there until high school, where it started to not be so great when the administration started to take actions without accountability. And anytime I would ask for any kind of accountability or understanding of why they would make decisions or why they wouldn't communicate, I would be met with evasive tactics or stonewalling or just being told, "I'm sorry you feel that way." And it got to a point where I had had enough of being treated poorly by the administration. So I started a Facebook page called TMSA, The Truth About the Charter School. And I opened this up and I started sending it out, and I started getting responses from parents of former and current students, former staff members, all giving me stories. And through receiving this information, I uncovered the assumed identity of the principal and found out that the principal had not only ties to the Gulen movement, but he was actually currently actively on a terrorist wanted list in Turkey for being part of FETÖ, which is the terrorist organization that Gulen sends money to. And so upon finding this out, that's, I believe, when you guys stumbled upon my page. And I mean, what better than your children than there is a chance that your charter school that you think is going to give your child a great education is being ran by a terrorist. So I figured it would be good to let other parents know, because we are told that, oh, they're going to get a wonderful education, they're going to be taken care of. But then the second we look into any of these teachers they have, we're finding criminal histories, we're finding fraud, we're finding that, you know, it's a terrorist running the school. And so I just felt like more parents needed to know this because it's not known information. And so that's why I'm here today.
And you have compiled all of this information in a document, correct? Okay.
Yes.
And when this show airs, I will link that to this show so that people can read that, do their own research, and then come to their own conclusions. So tell me, Bethany, how did you wind up choosing this particular school for Hilton? Get him enrolled there, and then what was the first incident that happened at this school that made you think something isn't quite right here?
Yeah. So initially, I didn't even want my kids to go to a charter school because I'm very big on personal expression, and I know that my kids are going to be square pegs and never fit in round holes. So they will not be good in factory settings. I've always kind of been, you know, anti-establishment and all of that. But I was getting married, and we had, between the two of us, 4 kids within 4 years of each other. And I was going to be in charge of carpool, and my now ex-husband and his ex-wife at the time wanted to put their kids in a charter school for a better educational experience so they could get further and go to a better college, essentially. And so I ended up agreeing so it would be less carpool, and we went the route of charter schools. The other 3 kids have all dropped out of that school years ago. They did not want to go there anymore, but my son had a really good social circle and he had a lot of friends. And growing up, I moved around a lot. So I wanted to prevent him from that trauma of switching schools and losing his friends and having to rebuild a social group. But middle school and elementary school weren't very bad. There was a lack of communication that I always noticed, and that was one of my biggest complaints, is why aren't you communicating with me? Or, you know, my kids have difficulty understanding what a lot of the teachers are saying. That was a difficulty. But the big issue really came when earlier in this year, it was in February of 2025, Hilton had like $300 stolen from him. And with that happening, I reached out, like, I did not find out when it happened at 11 o'clock in the morning, but instead I found out at 4:15 p.m. when my fiance was picking Hilton up from school, and he was speaking to a police officer by himself without me knowing about it. And my ex-husband was a cop, and we had very bad experiences. So for me, like, do not have my children interact with police without me knowing. Don't have me interact with police unless I need to. And so when I was asking the principal, I would email and ask, and he would just, for a week, he evaded my emails. He would not respond. He would give no information as to why he allowed this to happen and why there was no response. So I started calling the front desk, and I told him, I'm going to keep calling until you let me speak to the principal and tell me why this happened to my child. And so during a school day, while my son was at campus, they ignored my phone calls. And when they picked it up, they actually hung up on me. And so I went down to the school, and I had a meeting with the principal and the assistant principal, student culture or something. It's not assistant principal. They all have made up titles. But the assistant principal was there as well. And basically in that meeting, the principal establishes that no crime occurred here. Theft is not a crime. And he called me a very disrespectful woman, and spoke down to me the entire time. And I felt that it was really unfair how we were treated. And so I went through the school grievance policy, where I brought it to the school board. I gathered all the information. I gave them everything they wanted. And their response was, I'm sorry you feel that way, but Alden did nothing wrong here. And so after experiencing that, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to have to get loud about it, because they just want to be really quiet. And if you stay silent, then you're on their side. And at this point, I'm not going to be on the side of disrespecting parents and students, especially when after that, we found out while Hilton was still a student, while this person was still a teacher, that one of Hilton's teachers had 14 mugshots that all of the students were able to look up. Now, upon looking this up and telling the administration, this man, Gregory Lamont Pettiford, who's going by Bishop Pettiford at this school, has all these mugshots. Why is he teaching these classes? And their response was to block it on the Chromebooks so the kids couldn't access that information. Not, we are so sorry we're firing this man. We really dropped the ball on background checks. Instead, it was, the student shouldn't have access to our fraud. So it became a situation where I'm like, okay, if the school doesn't care, if the
so they never addressed it. They never addressed it.
No, we even went on the news. Hilton and I went on the news and were interviewed by WRAL with Destiny Patterson. And Destiny even told me that she reached out to there were 4 schools total in the area that this man worked at. TMSA was the only one to as she put it, they were very snarky and said, we don't have to answer your questions. And left it at that.
And what you see on the screen now, this is their website, correct? The Triangle Math and Science Academy. So they have an Apex campus and a Cary campus and a Durham campus. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And they do have 2 in Apex because they're right across.
2 at Apex.
Okay. And so you, Hilton, attended which campus?
For 4th grade through 8th grade, I was at the Cary campus. And then high school, we started at the what is now the K through 7th campus, while they were building the new campus right across the street, which is now for 8th through 12th.
Yeah, and as we were chatting prior to recording this podcast, I had told you that I had found, because I always make sure that I try to do my due diligence, and do a little research before I bring my guest on the show, because I don't live in North Carolina, is that now this article was dated September the 10th, 2025. And it looks like it's the Raleigh News Observer that had written about this. So they bypassed the usual charter school process to expand their campuses now in North Carolina. And so there is an article on the News and the Observer that talks about this, that talks about how they want to open a campus in Durham, and what they did to bypass what is normally the process through a loophole in the charter application process. So it says, instead of applying for a new charter school, TMSA asked the review board to amend Triangle Math and Science Academy's charter to allow it to open what it calls a sub-campus. And so apparently they have plans to expand. And so what you are talking about and what you have experienced with little to no transparency or accountability seems to be standard for charter schools across the nation. So this educator is still educating at this school, the one with the 14 mugshots?
No. So he's no longer teaching at that school. But we did find that there is Rodney Smith and Sabrina Smith who do have fraud charges from embezzling from Leesville Middle School, I believe, in 2013. And they're both married and actively working at TMSA. As well as Adam Alden, who's the principal. We found his identity that he was living in the United States under in California. Hussein Hermali is his actual identity, and he was running the Magnolia Science Academies out in California, which is another charter system that was directly tied to Fethullah Gulen. He also is part of Writers and Journalists, which is an organization that's out of Turkey that is also one of their honorary presidents is Fethullah Gulen himself, and that Adam Alden still has TMSA students doing work with the Writers and Journalists.
Right.
Gule.
And you will see if someone Googles Fethullah Gulen and his charter school network, you will see all kinds of links and articles and resources where watchdogs, so to speak, are sounding the alarm about this. And there's something called fwatch.net that I have pulled up on the screen now. And if you go down to number 196, you will see the Triangle Math and Science Academy listed in North Carolina, where it is basically giving a synopsis. I'll scroll really quickly up here at the top. The list of FEDO-controlled charter schools in the USA as of the writing, of this particular entry. So as you see, it's a very extensive list here, and we live in Tennessee, so there are schools on the list there. I'm seeing Arkansas, Louisiana, Ohio, Texas, and I will drop these links as well so that if you're interested, you can check these out. But down at the bottom, it tells who Fethullah Gulen is, but it says Gulen movement schools, a threat to democracy. So this particular entry gives a good overview of what's going on here, and then they have a dedicated page to who is Fethullah Gulen. It states that he is the founder. Of course, he's passed away now, but this was written, prior to his death, and it talks about him being the founder and ringleader of the Fethullah terrorist organization and parallel state structure. And it gives a whole overview of who he is and why we should all be concerned about exactly how they have an influence within our educational system in the United States. Are you finding in the work that you're doing in terms of trying to sound the alarm, did the parents at the school where your son Hilton was attending, did they know any of this? Were they aware of who Fethullah Gulen was and what this meant?
So there is a very mixed reaction from parents. It really depends on whether they are Turkish or if they're American on what their response is to this. Because I've had some people respond going, oh my God, the Fethullah Gulen movement is known and has been identified as funding the attempted overthrow of the Turkish government. And it's known that they're sending money to do this.
Right.
And all of us that believe in democracy know that we don't do that in a violent way, that we vote our way into new leaders. And so there has been that, but then there is the opposite side of the coin where some people are saying, you're on the wrong side of history. This man's being persecuted by the Turkish government. And that's basically his argument is like, this disgruntled parent wants me to be attacked by the Turkish government. And I'm like, well, no, sir. The research I'm finding is showing that you are going to Turkey and saying, we will get you your work visa. You can work at our school. You just have to give us a small cut, and that small cut gets sent back to FETO. And that's problematic to me because I'm finding that that's the Turkish employees, but also what about these employees that aren't Turkish? Because every single one I've looked into so far has some kind of criminal history. The one that had the 14 felonies, he had no teaching credentials. That's the other big thing there. It's not like he had teaching credentials and a shady past. He had nothing that he should be in a school.
And that is typical for charter schools because within the charter school network, no matter who, which state it is or what type of school is being run, they do not have to have teaching credentials to teach at those charter schools. And so most parents, or I shouldn't say most, a lot of parents don't seem to be aware of that information. What I have read in doing the research about this Fethullah Gulen network is that most often the schools deny the fact that they are affiliated with Fethullah. So what about the Triangle Math and Science Academy? Have they acknowledged that they do have ties to Fethullah Gulen, or have they
No. So there's been no acknowledgement of ties to the Gulen network. And that has been one of the biggest things that I've been sounding the alarm about is that like, hey, this school clearly has ties. This man was in this country for at least a decade operating under the name Hussein Hermali. saying, I am with Gulen.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden he moves to North Carolina and says, shh,
Yeah.
no Gulen here.
So
But like,
did
we
you
all know.
Did you broach this subject with them? Did you ask them?
So I brought it up on my page,
Mm-hmm.
and he sent out an email to the entire school.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see if I can find it real quick, because it was who is.
And just to quickly add on with the guy that had all those mugshots, the ex-teacher,
Mm-hmm.
those were just the digitized ones.
Mm-hmm.
His actual like rap sheet started back in the 1980s.
Wow.
He's in his 50s,
Mm-hmm.
but he had been committing, like doing stuff for a long time, and most of
Right.
it was like worthless checks and like fraud and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
But him
Mhm.
and there's another guy too that left, but also had like a shady past. Both of them left on their own terms. Nothing was ever through the school.
Right.
But
So this school did not fire them or let them go. They left of their own recognizance.
Yeah. And the other one that he's mentioning, that's Elliot Childress, where he was the athletic director for a few years at that school. And they hired him right after a 3-month suspension for inappropriate sexual communication with a student.
Mm-hmm.
So when Hilton brought this up to the administration, the ladies at the front desk, they tried to cover it up even. They didn't even say like, oh, that's not a big deal. They said, oh no, he was just the moderator on a group chat and something went wrong. And
yeah,
that's not an excuse. Like you don't get your license revoked for 3 months for something that isn't nefarious.
So he was a teacher in another school system, a licensed teacher in another school system. Then his license was revoked, and then he came to the charter school and was employed there. Is that?
Yeah, it was suspended for 3 months, and then he was hired by the charter school.
So Hilton, so Hilton was actually calling them out. You were actually questioning them. Oh boy, how'd that go over?
Well, I know with that guy with Childress, when I was going around talking, because the first person I asked was our school nurse, Miss Oates. And that's when she was like, oh, well, I've known him for a while. Like a bunch of some other students found it out and asked him about it. And so, that's really like hurting his feelings. And so it's like, trust me, he was just like supposed to be moderating this group chat, and some other students said something inappropriate and he got in trouble for it. And that was last school year. And because me and my friend, we used to start looking into teachers after the last one with all the mugshots. And so we found that, and we're like, wow, that's crazy. And this school year I brought it up, and the story had suddenly changed to, oh, well, he didn't know her age. And I was like, that's not what you said last school year. That's not what you said.
You do realize that you're probably doing more research than most of the parents that have their kids enrolled in the school there. So this is why I tell people all of the time, it is important that you do your own research. And of course, we don't have any employees or any staff or administration from Triangle Math and Science Academy here on the show today to refute, any of the allegations that are being said. So again, I would encourage everyone to do their own research, start asking questions. If you are hearing something that concerns you in this podcast, my advice to you would be to contact the school administration and ask them about the allegations that we are discussing here today, and ask them to either refute them or to provide proof that it is inaccurate. Go ahead, Hilton.
I do know when my mom brought up the stuff about the principal to one of our APs, I forgot exactly what he said, but I know. What did Mr. West say about Mr. Alden?
He said he's not considered a terrorist in America because FETO is not technically considered a terrorist organization in this country, to which I respond, neither is any other far-right terrorist organization. So I feel like America doesn't really have a good understanding of what a terrorist is in these times.
So him saying,
but yeah, that was Mr. West's response.
Yeah, I think it was right, and I would encourage everyone, if you are a resident of North Carolina, and that if these, allegations that we are discussing in this show today concern you, I would highly encourage you to reach out to your local representatives, your House representatives, your senators, your reps, your Congress men and women, and ask them to do some research into this particular charter school, because your tax dollars are funding these schools. And I think as a taxpayer, you should be afforded transparency, and these discussions, should be allowed to happen, and they should be held accountable for decisions that they're making, hiring practices. And obviously, if you have children in your care, that should be your first and foremost priority. And so if you have teachers who have records, I would think that it would be your responsibility to notify the parents who have children in that school that, hey, we have someone on staff that has been arrested 14 times, if that was indeed the case. And you have proof of that, correct, Bethany? Like
Yes.
you have in your document.
We have all the mugshots. We have links to the news stories. We have everything for Adam Alden. I have pictures and videos of him as Hussein Hermali, with pictures of him as Adam Alden. Like, we have gone down all the rabbit holes. And at this point, I am getting ready to do just individual background checks on everyone in the directory. Because if the school's not going to do background checks, and even though my son's not there anymore,
Right.
that doesn't mean that other students shouldn't also be safe, and this information shouldn't be out there for the public.
Absolutely. Do you have other parents that are as concerned as you are, that are willing to speak out about what's happening, or are they afraid?
They're afraid.
Mhm.
Honestly, a lot of the people that have reached out, they start with kept anonymous, please be careful, things like that. Because a lot of people seem really afraid of these people. But I mean, honestly, based on my conversations with them, they seem a little more afraid of me than I am of them. So
Yeah.
I'm not that concerned.
Right. Well,
Mr. West was trembling too hard to use the mouse on his computer when we spoke.
Right.
So
there's a lot to be said about shining a light on the darkness. And, I think that, again, it should be transparent. The taxpayers are funding this. It should be a complete and total open book in terms of what's going on in that school, who's being hired to teach the children, where the money is being allocated to, who the charter school managers of the school are, what they're doing with the funding that they receive. All of these things, in my opinion, should be public knowledge and public record. And the residents of North Carolina, whether you have a child enrolled in that school or not, should be asking hard questions, because it's your tax dollars that are funding it. And so this is what we're finding out about the charter school networks as a whole, is that there is a lack of transparency. There is a lack of accountability. And I have parents contact me on a regular basis, many of which do exactly what you said. They ask to, be able to maintain their anonymity. Some of them are bold and brave enough to stand up and speak out, because they know that the only way to stop all of this is to come forward and let their voices be heard. And I fully believe that. I would encourage everyone to, and I know that we chatted about this before we started recording this, and that is, if you have not watched the free documentary Killing Ed, I highly encourage you to do so. It goes into great detail about the Fethullah Gulen charter school movement. And I had the privilege of actually interviewing the producer of that particular documentary. His name is Mark Hall. I'm going to drop those links as well in this show, so people can go back and access that. If you watch that documentary, that is really going to open your eyes about this movement in general and what's really going on. Hilton, I would like for you to kind of give your perspective of what it was like being a student at this school. Do you think that you received a great education there? Do you think that you were given opportunities that you would not have been given anywhere else? You're a very bright guy. I mean, I've already seen that, through the discussions that we've been having here. So how do you think that has impacted your educational pedigree to this point?
TMSA is horrible, like with the learning side of stuff. Teaching wise, almost nothing makes sense to anyone. Um, like right now, I think a lot more kids have learned more about how to cheat than how to actually do their work. I remember freshman year, we had this whole system set up on our Chromebooks where they had this algebra calculator downloaded to all our Chromebooks. And they went through some lengthy process of like trying to log into the calculator and clicking log in with GitHub and going to Google and clicking sign in to Google and then clicking on the help page and then having a tab that like Go Guardian. It's this thing where it's like a basically like screen recorder so teachers can see your screen and stuff or like see your search history so you're not cheating. And so like students found a way around that immediately. And they got rid of that and now a lot of kids are failing. And so it's
Wow.
it's not really the best with education and
Right.
the kids that are like smarter like that or really good at cheating,
Mhm.
um, they just use those kids to like boast online
Yeah.
and like they're really big and trying to be like, hey, we're super academic, we're like super smart, and they keep trying to show that off. But if you come to this school, then like a bunch of students are gonna be like, no, this place like sucks. Like
Yeah. What you're stating is reiterated in that documentary, Killing Ed. They also talk about how special needs kids that need, more assistance, kids that it's going to be more expensive to educate them because of the interventions and the special services that they need. Those kids are kind of pushed to the wayside. Did you
yes.
experience that? Is that your personal opinion of what you saw there as well?
Yeah, I'm not gonna say names, but we had definitely a couple students that like at most what they would do is they would have some TA come in and then you just go with them and you take a test in a different room and then you come back. And that's basically the most of it. Or
Mhm.
like we had one student that was like that really needed
Mhm.
special needs stuff.
Right,
Um
interventions, yeah.
yeah, and she was like the only student like that and so she basically just stayed with the TA all day and did her classes with her.
Mhm.
Um and like I didn't know her like that, so I don't know how that went for
Right,
her, but it
yeah,
looked very different than most things.
right.
And
It's concerning, to hear, your perspective that because they're touting themselves as this superior educational experience, focusing on math and science, but you didn't that's not your opinion of what you received there.
yeah, no, like when that one teacher that left with all the mugshots, he left
Mhm.
on his own terms with right after third quarter, so we had one quarter left, and they just didn't even try to find a teacher. They just had
Oh, wow.
like a rotating substitute, and this was right before this was for an AP class. So they just had like a little rotating door of random teachers or substitutes. And so most kids failed that AP exam or
Wow.
got below a 3 and didn't get that college credit or didn't get anything like that.
Right, because they didn't have the proper instruction, happening in the classroom if they didn't have, teachers there that were qualified to teach the material. Um, is it a large school? Are there a lot of students enrolled there?
It's not as large as most public schools. I think
Mhm.
there's no way we're over like 2,000 students, maybe like 1,000 max or like, like around that
Right.
area.
So, are there
Because
parents clamoring in that area, Bethany, to get their kids enrolled in these schools because they believe that it's superior?
I mean, I think that's why a lot of us did put our kids in that school is because it seems like, oh wow, it's a foot up. Like they're gonna have a better chance at getting into a good school. Um, but that's just definitely not what they deliver at all.
Let me ask you this. So clearly you were pushing back, and clearly they knew that you were digging in and doing research, with what was going on behind the scenes. So what wound up happening with that? I know that you removed Hilton, but did they
So they after we did the news story, they started we went on the news to talk about the man that had the 14 mugshots, Pettiford, and
right,
after that they started really kind of just targeting in on Hilton of what is he
mhm,
doing wrong? How can we get
yeah,
him in trouble?
mhm,
And
retaliation.
so yeah, so they ended up suspending him for 5 days for using his phone outside of school hours is what was told to him told to me as to why he was being suspended. And then they sent an email saying that he was suspended for holding a door open for other students and not attending class. And so when I asked for video evidence of any of this, Mr. West, the assistant principal, called me, told me I could come to the school to review the video evidence because they can't send it to me. And so me and my fiance went to go view the footage, to which Mr. West said, nope, your fiance cannot come in. You can only come in by yourself. So he then told me I could not record. I could not audio record. I could not video record, which we are in a one-person consent state. I do not need his permission to audio record. So I audio recorded the whole thing.
Right.
Like I even told him, fine, turning it off. And then like continued. But he just proceeded to show me evidence of Hilton propping open an interior door, not anything security wise. He propped open an interior door and then showed me footage of him skipping class twice. And my question was, so the way you deal with someone not wanting to be in a classroom is to send them home for vacation for 5 days. That seems counterintuitive to me. Right. And right after that suspension is when we just went, because they also switched his schedule while he was out of class without my permission, which I told them, no, you're not changing his schedule, because there was another student that had issue with him. Right. And I said, well, you're not changing his schedule and disrupting his schedule because other people have issues. And Mr. West said, no, we're changing it. We don't need your permission. And that was that. And I just removed him from the school because I didn't want them to continue to retaliate against Hilton, because I've had enough of their mistreatment and this circus of criminals that is trying to teach children.
Right. Let me ask you this. I noticed on their website, because I pulled up their website and was perusing through it, and it mentioned home visits. So do they come into your home and do home visit? Okay. So that's just something.
They have it for us.
Yeah. I saw something, I think it was on one of their YouTube channels, or it was on their website where it was like a video. It was just like them inside of like some random dude's house. But if they do that, it's definitely with people that have some type of connection to the school, and they're like, okay, this can look chill, this could look cool, like it won't look like anything bad if we just are at a random house. Like they want to make sure
that was a huge red flag to me. I mean, a school, any school officials have no business in the home of the private home of a family, because their job is supposed to be to educate your children during school hours, not come into your home. It just seems like major overreach to me. And I was just curious if you had experienced that. And you said he was punished for using his phone outside of school hours?
Yeah. So 20 minutes before school started, he was on his phone. And
in the cafeteria.
Oh, yeah, okay. In the cafeteria. And Alden came up and said, you can't use your phone. And then it was after school, he was trying to coordinate a ride for after school, and they came up and said he was going to be suspended for that. Wow. Yeah, like they were just looking for any and every opportunity to get him out of the school, because he's noticing things. He can see the cracks.
Yeah. And he's also questioning. And those are two things that really get you in trouble. With people that don't want to answer questions, noticing things and asking questions. Those are two things that people who are not committed to transparency and accountability appreciate. They don't typically appreciate having to answer and discuss things that they may not want brought to light. And so what are your plans moving forward, Bethany? I mean, what do you hope to accomplish from this?
Honestly, I would like to just make enough noise that the school's held accountable, that maybe we get rid of these charter schools in our area, and use our taxpayer dollars for something that matters. Actual education, maybe public schools, homeschooling initiatives, but Hilton is going to finish his high school career probably online, where we can make sure that he's being, supervised by responsible adults, while he becomes a responsible adult himself. Right. But yeah, that's our next steps, and speaking to lawmakers too, and seeing what they can do.
Yeah, I definitely would encourage you to make appointments. And I would start with your conservative lawmakers in your state, because what we're finding nationwide is that the Republicans are pushing and advancing and promoting these initiatives like charter schools, like school choice. And because of that, you can't discriminate. So if you are using money, government monies, to open a charter school that is Muslim affiliated, then you're going to be doing that. You can't, it's equity. So you can't discriminate. So your dollars, your taxpayers' dollars, are going to be funding Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, no matter what your beliefs are. And so I think that that's what people need to understand with all of this, is that, you don't just get to pick and choose how you want that money allocated. So if you have issues with your tax dollars in America, funding an alleged Fethullah Gulen network, then you may want to be talking to your conservative, and I'm using air quotes on that one because none of this is conservative, lawmakers, and asking them, are you on board with these initiatives? What are you doing to prevent this? Because once you open up the door to any charter school, you're going to be funding all of these things, because again, you can't discriminate. So it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to this. Also, I definitely think that there needs to be some type of accountability to, delve into this and do some investigating and find out, what's really going on, because in no world is it okay to have someone with 14 felonies in a classroom, teaching children. So that is just appalling. But, we see things all across the nation with they call it pass the trash. I worked with an organization in Texas where they were trying to sound the alarm on this, because oftentimes they will let educators resign when they get in trouble, instead of firing them or disciplining them, suspending their license or removing their license. And so what they'll do is they'll just move somewhere else to another state and go right back into the classroom. And you will see, them repeating oftentimes, whatever it was that they did that got them in trouble, where they left before. And now, with you guys being on the show today, I'm seeing that they also seem to be filtering into the charter school network now, and going to work there as well. So, that's a huge problem, because ultimately our nation's children are the ones that are sitting in the seats of these schools, and they are being, potentially, subjected to people who have no business being around children. So, wow. Who originally found that out? Was it Hilton? Was it you and your friends that found this, or?
What started all of it was, I think before even the mugshot stuff, I think I was just mad at the school one day, and I was like, TMSA controversy, and I found was Indie Week. That was the first article that I'd ever found, and that's when it brought up where they were like, are you guys related to like Fethullah Gulen in any way? And TMSA was just like, no, and then that was just like the end of it. And then it was still near the beginning of the school year with Pettiford and all that. And some random kid was just like, hey, look at this. And he brought over his Chromebook, and it was just the directory, and it just had all those mugshots. And we're just like, oh, okay, that's funny. Like, but also like, no one, it wasn't like violent stuff. It was mostly just fraud stuff. Like, as a person, as a teacher, as a person, he was still like a really good guy. Like, he was like nice stuff. He wasn't like a danger to us.
Right.
But but no one felt like bringing that up to him. So they kind of just let it keep going.
And was he using different names in different areas, or how was that? Because didn't you say one of them had multiple assumed names, Bethany?
Yeah, so Pettiford, the one that had all the felonies and fraud charges, his full name is Gregory Lamont Pettiford, but he went by Bishop Pettiford at the school. And then Adam Alden, the principal of the school, he lived in California and Turkey under the name Hussein Hermali. And so we found those assumed identities for both of them. And I haven't had time to look into all the others yet, but I am sure we will find more as we look.
Wow. So this kid kind of stumbled upon this, not even knowing what he or she had found. And then it was a snowball effect of, we better look into some of the other school personnel to see what's going on. So did you ever have a discussion with the gentleman who lived in California who had is he over the school? What is his title? Is he like the headmaster?
Adam Alden, he is the principal of the high school. He is the one that told me theft is not a crime and called me a disrespectful woman. And he kind of he doesn't speak a ton of English. It doesn't seem like his accent is very thick. He just kind of smiles about everything and and then just says like heinous things and then just continues with his day. Yeah, but he's the one that he did the Magnolia Science Academy, and I guess they had licenses for 10 charter schools in California before he came here.
And I will say, when you're speaking of not the best grasp of the English language, that is also addressed in the documentary Killing Ed. And I will say that in some areas, Mark Hall, the director, he talks about how when they were building these charter school buildings, they were also creating areas, and I don't know if this is the case in the school where your son was going, but some of these teachers that they were bringing in were living in the school. They were building a place for them to live in the school. Do you know if that is the case there on that campus, or?
If they were, it would be miserable. There's definitely not space for that.
Yeah. So it's very fascinating to hear people who've actually experienced this. And I mean, you guys just literally went down the rabbit hole, so to speak, and started, finding out all of this information. And again, Bethany has compiled it, and I am going to make sure that I have that link to this show, so that those of you who are listening and have the desire to look into this even more can read what Bethany has compiled, for your own benefit. And again, I encourage you all, these are allegations that have been made here. Bethany is bringing receipts into her document that she has compiled so that you can go back and research that for yourself. I have heard over and over again that many of these schools, again, deny their connection to Fethullah Gulen. It would be interesting to see if any of them are willing to reach out and refute what you have said on this podcast today, Bethany. We would be happy to give them an opportunity to do just that. Maybe even have you on with them so we could just
love to.
Yeah, so that we could just have a big discussion about these accusations and allegations that have been made regarding the school. We believe in giving the other side an opportunity to have those discussions. Oftentimes we find that they aren't necessarily willing to do just that. But I will be, more than happy to allow that if they would like to come on with you, and we could have an open discussion format about this. Again, if you live in North Carolina and you're watching this show, now is the time to send this show to your elected officials and ask them what they're going to do about this particular charter school in North Carolina. Are they going to dig a little deeper? Are they going to speak to those that they represent about their concerns that they may have? And Bethany, please keep me posted once you reach out to them, what they tell you, because it's going to be, it's a slippery slope for the Republican Party, because again, they are promoting and advancing these initiatives. So we're going to start seeing more and more of this happening. And then when concerned parents start asking questions and demanding accountability and transparency. If that doesn't happen, then that is literally, it flies in the face of everything that the Republican Party claims that they stand for. So, we have come to a crossroads in this nation. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how that dialogue, what it looks like, and who is really going to be standing up and fighting for parental rights and educational autonomy and children's rights and protecting our nation's children. So please keep me posted on that. Hilton, I wish you all the luck and blessings. I don't believe in luck, so I guess I should say I wish you many blessings in furthering your educational career. Great job on standing for what you believe in and asking tough questions. I hope that you will continue to do that throughout the rest of your life. Always research. Do your own research. Don't be afraid to ask those tough questions. And I really look forward to hearing what you're doing, as you become an adult. And I want to thank you for being willing to come on the show and share your experiences. And it was a blessing to have you both on here today. And I look forward to staying in touch with you.
May I add something real quick too?
Sure, absolutely.
I just also wanted to say that this like the whole situation with TMSA and all that, it doesn't represent I'm not saying you said this, by the way. I just want to say it just in case. But
Sure.
this does not represent the Muslim community as a whole. It's a very small fraction, and specifically just this. But a lot of TMSA is Muslim, and I just wanted it to be clear that there's no hate for the community at large. It's peace and love for
Islam
everyone.
is not the issue. Muslim is not the issue. The issue is taxpayer dollars being sent to overthrow another government and a terrorist organization, which most Muslims aren't a part of.
And I think that taxpayers need to understand that when we start talking about, government monies, and we start talking about the funding of all of these different avenues of education, you're not going to be able to discriminate. So if you have an issue with your tax dollars funding things that you do not agree with, whether it be, for religious reasons or, moral reasons, whatever those reasons may be, you need to start having those discussions with your lawmakers. And so I think it is a great way to give a snapshot of what we are going to be moving toward in the future. I have major issues, again, with a lack of accountability and transparency in all charter schools. I have been calling out local charter schools in our area, and they're Christian. They are supposed to be affiliated with the Hillsdale ideology, and those have some of the same issues in terms of lack of accountability and transparency. And the parents that have contacted me have been upset about treatment that their children have received in the schools, bullying, not having the facilities themselves not being safe, not having proper safety measures in place. So again, those are taxpayers' dollars that are funding those schools. And then when the parents have issues, the issues are being ignored, not being heard, and these are the complaints that those parents are bringing to me. And so I think that we need to understand that, because what's going to happen as taxpayers now in Tennessee and other states that have passed school choice legislation is that you're going to be funding traditional education, then you're going to be funding private education, and then of course you have the charter school network. So all of these different avenues of education you are now going to be required to be funding with little to no accountability in terms of the charter school avenue and the private school sector. So I think that it's time for parents and taxpayers to wake up, and it's time for our elected officials to start have to answer hard questions about they want to take our money, but we don't get a say so in how they're spending it and how these schools are being operated. So again, I want to say thank you for having you both on today. We will have some links in the description of this show. Killing Ed will be there. Bethany's document will be there for you to preview. I will also drop a link to the radio show that I did with the director of Killing Ed, so you can listen to what he had to say about what he uncovered when he was researching these Fethullah Gulen charter schools across the United States. So again, thank you both, Bethany and Hilton, for coming on. It was a pleasure to have you, and I hope that we can be in touch soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to the Free Your Children podcast. We are very blessed to be able to continue to do our work. If you would like to continue to support us and enable us to be able to do what we're doing, please consider giving a donation, and that donation link can be found over on our website at freeyourchildren.com. Don't forget, once again, to sign up on all of our social media platforms. Sign up for our free newsletter. And once again, if you're in the area where we are presenting a seminar, please stop in and say hi. We would be thrilled to be able to meet many more of our followers in person. So once again, we know that we are in a battle for the souls of our nation's children, and it is our mission here at Free Your Children to better equip and empower parents to protect their families. Thank you so much for joining us today.